Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. Due to YouTube's changing quote-unquote community standards, I created a channel called Grumpy Old Fart over on Rumble, a free speech alternative to YouTube. You can see all of my stuff over there, including my political and social commentary, as well as my current events videos. The links to my YouTube and Rumble channels, as well as links to let you order my books, are in the description of this video. If you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. I welcome your comments, even if you disagree with me. Now, on with the video. Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. I'm doing a Recon the role-playing game advice video on life on the front lines. Now, this is primarily with the in-country, meaning in Vietnam, so bear with me. Now, you also have to bear with me because I'm still getting over a cold, so my voice is going to be cracky and I'll cough some, maybe snort a little bit, sorry. For those of you who do not know, Recon is a game about soldiers in the Vietnam conflict and in the mercenary world shortly following that conflict. Check out my other Recon advice videos. As a game master, it's your duty to create a world that is as realistic as possible, given what your players want. Now, in the first advice video I did, I think I said something like, one of the first questions you have to ask is how realistic you want it to be. Well, that dealt with the lethality and the brutalness of the war. This deals with what life was actually like, living there and walking patrol, that kind of thing. So, since the game is set in the 1960s and 1970s, I would suggest an immersion in television and movies of the era. Get the feel for how society was at that time. Okay? Nobody had cell phones. It was computers didn't exist as far as that goes. I mean, they had them, but there were no home computers, that kind of thing. It was a completely different society. Just get the feel for how society was at that time. That would be step one. Now, then you want to watch the war movies set in that era. Movie makers had an obligation to make their movies as reasonably realistic as possible. I did a video the other day where I listed a bunch of different movies to watch. That would be another good thing to do. If you haven't watched those movies, go check those out. Then check out the glossary on page 115 through 119 in the rule book. Practice using those terms and get familiar with the radio jargon and the maps provided in the book. Become familiar with the weapons. Check out YouTube. They have a lot of videos on how effective the weapons were of the time. Okay. I know they have videos on the World War II weapons, specifically the M1 Garand, the M1 carbine, that kind of thing, and some of those are in the book as well. But some of the newer weapons, I know they have YouTube videos about them, about how they were used and how effective they were, that kind of thing. Some things you may not be aware of, and this sounds trivial, but you gotta pay close attention. The water in the area, especially in the Mekong Delta, was full of some of the most exotic fungi in the world. Slogging through it caused what was called jungle rot on a soldier's feet, a grunt's feet. I'm going to call them grunts because it's easier. Their feet would literally rot from walking in the water. This could be literally as debilitating as any landmine or booby trap. Some of the more exotic fungus affected grunts, even 20 years later, they couldn't get rid of it. I mean, it was nasty, okay? Grunts were ordered to carry multiple pairs of socks and dry the wet ones out around their neck. They were ordered to change socks whenever the squad stopped for a break or for a meal or whatever. Always change your socks. Keep your feet dry. That's the main thing. The VC and NVA did not have the same regard for the lives of... Now, here we're getting into some serious stuff that if you're squeamish or if you're underage, maybe you should let skip this part, I don't know. But this is what happened. Okay, so it is war and it's nasty and dirty. So if you're not an adult, maybe get an adult to listen to it and see if your guardian, your parent, whatever, and make sure it's okay to hear this, because I don't want to traumatize anyone. So you've been warned. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. The VC and NBA did not have the same regard for the lives of women and children as we do. In Vietnam, children were often asked to give live grenades to American soldiers. Baby strollers were packed with explosives under the baby. Shoeshine boxes were often packed with explosives rigged to blow when somebody opened it. Hookers and prostitutes were riddled with diseases and often employed razor blades, knives, or explosives. Remember, if you can think of it, the VC have already perfected it. So that's important. A common VC tactic would be to sneak into a fire base. Tunnels were a favorite avenue. They would dig tunnels up and come up like in the latrine or in some out of the way place. They would sneak out of the tunnel into a hooch, meaning a little shack where the people lived, or into a little camp area. Okay. They would slit the throats of each man except one. This served to demoralize and instill mental illness en masse in the American troops. You wake up and everybody else there is dead. That instills. If you can do that and not feel something, you're probably not human. I'm just saying. Many squads posted a guard even in their own hooch on their own base because of this. It's not good, but that's it. Now, check out pages 164 to 172. It's very informative. Also, read the mission directors section on pages 95 to 115. A favorite VC tactic was to get one of their own hired on at the base as a maid or a cook or a laborer. These spies could then feed intel to the VC, meaning the VC knew when our patrols were going out. They knew the routes. They knew how many men there were, what weapons they were carrying. I mean, in one instance, they even knew the hometown of the squad leader. It was crazy. Read up on armored personnel carriers, APCs. I believe the one they list in the book is called a Lynx. Read up on tanks, PBRs, river patrol boats, and helicopters. These are the only advantages grunts had in the field. Read up on the South Vietnamese military of that era. ARVN, the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. ARVN officers were mostly corrupt, and many of them were part of the opium trade. ARVN troops were the epitome of incompetent. Many ARVN troops were VC or VC sympathizers. These were the allies of the Americans. Yeah, you and your allies are sympathizers with the enemy. It can't be good. Read up on the indigenous personnel on page 41. If you haven't read through the book, please do. Read up on the U.S. troops section on page 110 through 113. Also, research the Allied troops aiding the U.S. in their endeavor, because it wasn't just Americans there. There were Canadians and some British and, Australians, that kind of thing. This should give you a good cross-section of nationalities to choose from to add flavor to the game. All in all, excuse me. All in all, the more 1960s and 1970s flavor you can bring to the game, the better. If possible, find an actual Vietnam veteran to talk to. These aging, priceless heroes are a wealth of stories and information to use in your game. Just remember to be respectful, because these guys were badass long before the term badass existed. Okay? Even if they're in their twilight years, you got to show these guys some respect. That's all I'm saying. For example, a good example of these stories, my family friend Lino was a Marine in Vietnam. Now, where he was stationed, they were setting up their wires and digging their foxholes and stuff. The VC would send dogs into the wire to trip the flares and cause chaos. The officers ordered the Marines to shoot all of the dogs in the village to prevent that from happening. It's dirty, but there it is. Later, the locals showed up with homemade stew, which the FNGs, the effing new guys, would buy, and they'd scarf it up because it was fresh food, you know. Lino never bought any. One FNG asked him why, and he told the guy to ask what the meat was. The reply was, "Number one, bow wow." The locals were feeding the dead dogs to the Marines. Look, I know there was nothing good about the Vietnam War. The fact that they made a game out of it, I enjoy the game for the fun, but there was nothing fun about the Vietnam War. When you hear stories about what went on over there and you try to put that into the game, you have to be careful and balance it out with the action and the comedy that you can put into the game. War is ridiculous. And I don't mean ridiculous in a fun way, but it is ridiculous. Sometimes soldiers had no recourse but to laugh. And some of the funniest stories I've ever heard came from Vietnam and World War II and Korea. So keep that in mind. Never ever play off the Vietnam conflict in this game as anything short of a tragedy. But if you're running a recon game, you got to make it fun. So that's your job as the game master. So I'm trying to help you out there. Realism adds to the flavor. That's all I'm saying. I hope this helps you, and I hope I'm helping you to add the flavor to your game that your players are looking for. And I hope this finds everybody well. You folks have a good day. God bless one and all.
We elect cookie-cutter politicians every single election cycle. Yes men who maintain the status quo and do just enough to make us believe the system still works. Imagine, if you will, a president who actually tries to fix things. If you like action, political intrigue, and a righteous crusade, check out my political thriller, The Righteous President.